Welcome to Newsreel Now, the live stream where we break down the biggest stories in tech, politics, and culture without the spin. You can think of this show as a Sunday morning show that actually grew up on the internet. And we started it because we have our award-winning app, but we felt like there was still something missing on the internet, and we want to reach people where they are. There are so many live stream shows now, but there are either cable news shows on CNN, or you have commentators on YouTube and Discord and the like that are trying to dominate the conversation with commentary. So we felt there was an opening for a more balanced show that was done to reach the next generation where they are. So my name is Jack Brewster. I'm the CEO and founder of Newsreel. I'm joined by one of my editors, Nadia Ye, who will be co-hosting the show with me. And every week, possibly more, we're going to bring you some of the biggest stories of the week and talk about them in a nuanced way. For the first story we have today, we're going to talk about the commencement addresses that are going around across the country where students have been booing the speakers when they mention AI. One of the first times that we saw this was Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, who mentioned AI at the University of Arizona commencement address. And we're going to play one of the clips that we have here.
Last December, Time magazine selected its Person of the Year for 2025. And this time, it was the architects of artificial intelligence. Interesting.
AI is rewriting production as we sit here. I know it. Deal with it. Like I said, it's a tool. Hey, like I said, you can hear me now or you can pay me later.
We're using a new AI system as our reader. So that is a lesson learned for us.
The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution. Oh, whoa. What happened? Okay, I struck a chord.
So I think the biggest things that I noticed there was that people were really, really furious with just the sheer mention of AI. So I want to bring now Jemima McAvoy, who's a reporter at The Information. I also know her from my time at Forbes, to talk about what this moment means. Was this just a viral video that was trending, or does it mean something more? So Jemima's reported on AI and tech in Silicon Valley for The Information now for years. She did some coverage of billionaires as well at Forbes. Jemima, so this is now 3 campuses in 2 weeks. This is somewhat of a trend. But do you think this is a real turning point in how we're thinking about AI, or how people are feeling about AI, or is this just a one-off?
Yeah, I think this definitely is a turning point. And I will say, being here in San Francisco, I'm not surprised to see this sort of reaction from students. I think there's this massive disconnect between how leaders in the tech world are thinking about AI and how the average person is experiencing it. And so far, there's been massive predictions about what's going to happen to the labor market. Jobs are going to be upended. Most of what we're seeing so far is that's happening with entry-level positions. Students that are graduating or near graduating from college are really kind of at the center, like ground zero of experiencing the negative impacts of AI, or at least the impacts of AI on the labor market. There's a lot of uncertainty about jobs, paired with the timing of all these massive layoffs. We had, like 8,000 people laid off from Meta yesterday. It's a really scary time. And so I'm not surprised to see this sort of reaction from students. I think it's reflective of a growing, we call it the tech lash in my workplace, and we're talking a lot to tech leaders about this growing tech lash that we're seeing. I think it's just going to be the beginning of a bigger movement.
So you've written about the tech lash, and you've said that Silicon Valley is kind of experiencing an ecstasy and agony moment. At the same time, why do you think some of these leaders, who very intelligent people, seem to be getting the room somewhat wrong?
Yeah, so I actually wrote that specific story a few months ago, and I think both emotions are have only been exacerbated over the past few months. I think the reason that leaders are reading the room wrong is because they're really excited about the technology. They feel like they're working on something that is changing the world, and they just are happy to be there. They're like, nerding out over being part of this movement. It's like the people working on the atomic bomb, where you're like, this is a very interesting scientific problem, but also kind of scary. And that's why you're hearing like Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, warning about, there's going to be huge changes to the workforce. At the same time, hasn't slowed down the pace of what he's doing.
Mhm.
So it's kind of this interesting dichotomy where they're kind of contradicting themselves a little bit, some of the tech leaders.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you think there's something that these AI tech leaders or just people who have worked in Silicon Valley could have said to a room of college students that would have resonated well?
I was thinking, thinking about that question, it's difficult. I think honestly, the word AI is just going to be a trigger point, no matter what is on the other side of it. In Silicon Valley, there's a growing movement among tech leaders who are beginning to get worried about
Mhm.
this rising backlash. It started with the data centers, now it's the students. It's going to keep going. I don't know if they're actually concerned about like growing inequality rather than concerned about, attacks on themselves, like we saw the attacks on Sam Altman's house. So I think leaving out the word AI, or maybe like we're going to share some of the wealth and abundance that's coming
Mhm.
from this at the top with you guys. Maybe some like guarantee of the future, but no one's going to offer that. So I know there's talk about like universal basic income. I think
Mhm.
maybe if some people that are students that are, everyday workers were seeing some of the benefits, some of the wealth from created from AI, there would maybe be a different reaction.
Yeah, I saw Steve Wozniak said, I think, like actual intelligence during his commencement address, and that like received some applause. So maybe that's the way to
Yeah,
frame it. Thank you so much for coming, Jemima. I appreciate
of
it.
course. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to get a student's perspective. So the first student that we're going to, well, the only student we're going to bring in is Giovanni Lacroix, I'm sorry, and he's going to talk to us about the student's perspective. So Giovanni, you're a student at the University of Cambridge, and I want to talk to you about what you are feeling. So what is the actual mood among students right now? I know you're based in the UK, you're from France, but talk to us about what you have experienced seeing this firsthand.
I will say the predominant emotion is definitely fear of AI, and especially fear of uncertainty, fear of the unknown. So it's things like doubt about whether skills will be relevant in the
Mhm.
future of the job market, about if there's going to be any jobs at all, really. And it's not just fear that AI will take jobs generally, but
Mhm.
that AI will target junior positions in company, because it has been proven that AI is more effective at replacing junior positions, especially in sectors such as counseling or finance, which are in
Mhm.
high demand for graduates. So yeah, I will say definitely fear, and with fear comes also a decay of trust in conventional institutions and conventional professional paths.
Do you think that your professors and just professors across the country, I know you can't speak for the US, but maybe in the UK and France, are preparing you adequately for the AI age? Do you feel like career service centers too are preparing you well for the AI age?
Yes, to an extent. I will say that career services are targeting specific issues linked with AI. That may look like, for example, the use of AI in CVs and how HR teams are also using AI to scan CVs and select them. So there is, for sure, some mention of that in career services. But at the same time, on a more global scale, on a more general scale, career services and professors do not have agency on the job market and on the graduate job market as a whole. So because they have no direct influences on things such as mass layoffs or decrease in junior positions, I don't think they have the power to reshape
Mhm.
the job market.
If you were in the room and you heard you had a tech leader speaking to you for commencement, what would you want to hear? I asked a similar question to Jemima, but I'm curious from a student's perspective, what kinds of things are resonating right now?
I mean, personally, I would really like to hear some optimism about human potential, and also the place of human authenticity and human work in the workplace of the future, because I'm definitely optimistic about it. I think in a range of sectors there will be like human authenticity that will be valued, that will be monetized. In journalism, that may look like, for example, gonzo style reporting, which involves high subjectivity and the reporter as a first person. But then you have also the same thing in other fields. I think in content creation, for example, I'm sure that there will be a lot of big creators and YouTubers or streamers that will not be replaceable by AI. And some skills such as public speaking also will not be replaced.
So trending over the last day or so has been these comments by Jeff Bezos, and I think what's really interesting here is like why certain parts of that interview took off. But Jeff Bezos, on an interview with Squawk Box, which is a show on CNBC, said that the bottom half of earners should pay zero federal income tax, and this raised alarms because people were surprised to hear someone of that kind of wealth say such a thing, and also because Bezos has been kind of stepping back a bit from speaking about politics. And as we know, also there's the controversy he's had with the Washington Post.
Talk about making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes? Why is somebody at all? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything. And so, and by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country pay only 3% of the taxes. So, it's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have, it's a small amount of money for the government, that. And really, and the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this. We shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her to. People talk about, making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes? Why is somebody at all? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything. And so
I think another thing that's important about that clip is that he's really talking about like personal stories as well. Like he brings up the nurse in Queens example. He says that we shouldn't be asking the nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her an apology. I went and looked at some of the comments on these posts across the internet, and what struck me was how just like one note it was just like one perspective. Like people were like, yeah, of course, like this makes sense to us, like why? And then there were others that were like, why is he bringing this up? Like they were surprised to hear that he would say such a thing. I think there are a lot of people now that are in that that are the high wealth earners that are looking at sort of the future now with AI and thinking, okay, where do we go from here? What is the economy going to look like? This came up earlier on the show with Jemima, is talking about universal basic income, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now among even obviously people who are struggling to get jobs, but also higher earners who are wondering what is the future of American capitalism look like. So I felt like this was the timing was very, very interesting for this. Now we're going to go to our final segment of the day, which is a unique one for Newsreel now. It's going to be called the Rage Bait segment of the week. And the reason why we're doing this, Nadia will explain, but just to throw my 2 cents in there, is that a lot of what Newsreel has been producing has been in response to the chaos of our information landscape. So Nadia, over to you.
Thank you, Jack. And like Jack said, we are doing a new, or we're going to start doing a new segment on Rage Bait. And I think that's because we really want to deliver sort of non-partisan takes on what's happening in the world. And there's so much misinformation. So the segment's going to focus on debunking it and giving different points of view. So to start off our first segment, there's a lot of talk about Christopher Nolan's follow-up to Oppenheimer, which is The Odyssey. And earlier in February, he said that, or Musk said that Chris Nolan has lost his integrity. So a few counterpoints have come up, and one is that The Odyssey is a myth. So there is no historical Helen of Troy. And in fact, Eartha Kitt, who is a famous Black actress, for those of you who don't know or may be too young to know, Eartha Kitt played Helen of Troy in 1950. People also named Nyong'o one of the most beautiful woman in the world in 2014, and she's also the face of various beauty companies. And Nolan, in response to some of the backlash, or in response to a lot of the ongoing discussion over his film, he said on casting the rapper Travis Scott to Time that I cast him because I wanted to nod towards the idea that the story has been handed down as oral poetry, which is analogous to rap. And back to you, Jack.
Yeah, so going off of that last segment, thank you, Nadia, and thank you for our listeners joining us today. The point of all of this, like why are we starting a show when we're really trying to move beyond the feed, is that we feel like we have to take our mission to people for them to hear it and for us to obviously make a name for ourselves. And so while our app has been getting traction, like I think of this show as just an extension of the mission that we're trying to achieve, which is to build a news ecosystem outside of the feed. And so this is going to be the one of many, many shows that we're going to have where we interview a lot of young people, a lot of voices that are missing from cable news and live streamers on social media. And it all ladders up to what I think of as being like a real movement right now towards like authenticity, towards shows that emphasize trust over inflammatory remarks. We're not going to be stiff like some of the cable news shows that we see nowadays, but we're also going to be reporting news from a nuanced, balanced perspective. So thank you for everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.